Welcome to this masterclass series on anticipatory cyber and digital diplomacy for African diplomats, brought to you by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria. Today's distinguished speaker, Ms. Szilvia Tóth, Cybersecurity Officer, Transnational Threats Department, OSCE Secretariat. Together, we explore the future of diplomacy, powered by Consultancy Support Services, CS2 Limited.
It is a pleasure to address you today to speak about one of the most dynamic areas of modern diplomacy, cyber diplomacy. We live in an era where cyberspace is not just a tool. It's a battleground, a marketplace, a community, and increasingly a domain of international relations. As digital technologies evolve, so too must our diplomatic strategies. First, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Szilvia Tóth. I'm the Cybersecurity Officer at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE. My work focuses on supporting our participating states in the implementation of cybersecurity confidence-building measures, or CBMs. Before I joined the OSCE in 2019, I was the coordinator for cyber issues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Hungary. This means I am a cyber diplomat since 10 years. But I have also worked before that on ICT issues, mainly related to telecommunications. With my background, I was drawn to the new developments in ICTs, and 2015 was a remarkable year for the topic of cyber diplomacy. The Group of Governmental Experts, or GGE, adopted its landmark report, endorsed by all UN member states, which created the UN framework of responsible state behavior. I will get back to that later. The Global Conference on Cyber Stability marked a significant milestone in international cyber diplomacy, as it emphasized the importance of international cooperation, reinformed that existing international law applies to cyberspace, and introduced the concept of cyber stability as a shared global objective. It was also during this conference that the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise was founded, a multi-stakeholder community with now over 200 members, which aims at coordinating capacity building and sharing best practices. 2015 was also the year when the World Summit on Information Society was extended for another 10 years, and the mandate for the Internet Governance Forum was prolonged. This is an important multi-stakeholder platform to discuss issues related to Internet governance, but also capacity building, and is a truly inclusive process. And early 2016, the OSCE adopted its second set of cyber confidence building measures. As you can see, a lot has happened in that year, making the field of cyber diplomacy an interesting and appealing field, which was at that time in an early stage and still is a continuously developing area. That was appealing for me to be able to contribute to this new field of diplomacy, exploring and shaping the rules that govern cyberspace. Before I go into more details regarding the current developments in cyber diplomacy, let us clarify the terminology. What is the difference between digital and cyber diplomacy? Digital diplomacy is a broad umbrella. It includes using digital tools like social media, virtual embassies, or big data analytics to enhance foreign policy and public diplomacy. Think of it as diplomacy using digital means. Cyber diplomacy, on the other hand, is diplomacy about cyberspace. It's where diplomats engage in international negotiations to address cybersecurity, cybercrime, and internet governance. It is about rules, norms, and principles of responsible state behavior in cyberspace. In short, digital diplomacy is the how, cyber diplomacy is the what. My expertise and experience lie in cyber diplomacy, so I will focus in my speech on the UN processes related to international ICT security in the context of peace and security, as well as the developments in the OSCE, which might be relevant outside of our region as well. First, let's look at the global processes. The topic of international ICT security is on the agenda of the United Nations since 1998, creating the crucial platform for discussing the rules, norms, and principles of responsible state behavior in cyberspace. Initially, the discussions took place in the so-called group of governmental experts, comprising 15 to 25 experts who discussed emerging threats, the applicability of international law to cyberspace, norms, confidence-building measures, as well as capacity building and international cooperation. One of the landmark moments was the adoption of UN Resolution 70/237, the final report of the group of governmental experts in 2015, which affirmed that international law applies to cyberspace and created 11 voluntary non-binding norms for responsible state behavior in cyberspace. After this, the interest of states to participate in such discussions grew exponentially. And also, due to the changed geopolitical situation, two parallel processes were established. Another group of governmental experts with 25 representatives, and the open-ended working group with the participation of all UN member states, which continued to discuss the above-mentioned 4 pillars of the UN framework of responsible state behavior. Just to repeat, the applicability of international law to cyberspace, norms, confidence-building measures, and capacity building. The group of governmental experts created an additional layer of understanding to these topics, while in the open-ended working group, states continued to discuss these topics on a more general basis, reaffirming the findings of previous GGEs. Both of these processes have succeeded in adopting final reports contributing further to the acquis on international cyber diplomacy. For cyber diplomats, the knowledge of these reports is essential. A good resource to understand the UN processes is the e-learning course on cyber diplomacy of the UN Office of Disarmament Affairs, freely available on their website. Currently, the second open-ended working group is negotiating the UN framework of responsible state behavior, with a final report expected to be adopted in July 2025. In parallel to the global efforts, regional organizations have also contributed to the shaping of the framework of responsible state behavior. One of these regional organizations is the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the largest regional security organization with 57 participating states. With its vast experience on traditional arms control, the OSCE was well placed to start to work on developing cyber ICT security confidence-building measures in the early 2010s. The OSCE became the pioneer in the development, but more importantly, in the practical and meaningful implementation of its cyber confidence-building measures. These are non-binding, voluntary measures, but all the 57 states made a political commitment to adhere to these measures. The aim of the confidence-building measures is to enhance interstate cooperation, transparency, predictability, and stability, as well as to reduce the risks of misperception, escalation, and conflict that may stem from the use of ICTs. These 16 CBMs were elaborated within the OSCE in the so-called informal working group specifically established to discuss, negotiate, and agree on cyber confidence-building measures. While the working group was an important venue to agree on the CBMs, it plays an equally crucial role in the implementation of the measures. OSCE participating states are regularly updating on national but also OSCE-wide implementation of these confidence-building measures. In the course of the years, we have realized that CBMs are not only tools to enhance interstate cooperation, transparency, and stability, but they are also helping build cyber capacities and strengthen national cyber resilience. But why am I speaking so much about these regional CBMs? You might say that they are only relevant for the OSCE region. That is true. Of course, we want to make them useful for the OSCE participating states. But we have found out that there are some good practices which we have identified, which can also be useful for other regions or states. And therefore, we made efforts to share these experiences and make them publicly available. I will briefly list these resources, and the links will be shared with the organizers of the event. E-learning course on explaining the OSCE 16 cyber confidence building measures. E-learning course on coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Cyber incident classification, a report on emerging practices within the OSCE region containing recommendations. Emerging practices in cybersecurity-related public-private partnerships and collaboration in OSCE participating states with numerous examples. And an OSCE database on cyber terminology compiled and hosted by Serbia. I have to emphasize that we are sharing these practices as a source of inspiration. Maybe some of these experiences can be useful, maybe you can learn from them, some of them might be irrelevant, but maybe some of these might help starting to brainstorm and initiate a discussion for measures in your regional context. I would like to briefly touch upon emerging trends and challenges. We are seeing a rapid evolution in both threats and responses. Therefore, the interest in common frameworks, like the UN Framework of Responsible State Behavior or the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, is growing, with more states committing to these. The emerging threats, also relevant in the context of cyber diplomacy, are discussed at each of the sessions of the open-ended working group. The rapid spread of ransomware attacks concerns many states, but the most discussed issue these days is the intersection between artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. AI can help detect and mitigate threats faster, but it also opens new attack vectors. The widespread use of AI could also have security implications. Attribution is another of the issues often mentioned in the context of international cyber negotiations. Attribution is always a delicate matter, and a difference needs to be made between technical, legal, and political attribution. Political attribution is usually made on the highest political levels and has to consider a lot of factors, including international relations. So, why become a cyber diplomat? Because this field is not just about stopping threats. It's about building a safer, fairer digital future. As a cyber diplomat, you will be part of a global effort to promote stability in an increasingly contested domain. You will work at the crossroads of law, technology, policy, and geopolitics. Every negotiation, every multilateral discussion you take part in contributes to a more secure international order. To do this well, you will need a diverse skill set. Technical understanding to grasp the nature of digital threats, diplomatic finesse to navigate multilateral negotiations, and perhaps most importantly, a mindset that's open, adaptive, and resilient in the face of constant change. This is a field where lawyers meet engineers, where coders collaborate with negotiators. It's not just for specialists, it's for bridge builders. This is exactly what was so appealing for me when I started to work on cyber diplomacy. Being able to touch upon so many areas, and especially being able to work in such a new field and being able to shape the discussions. I enjoy working with different countries, different cultures, different people. It can be challenging, but at the same time, it is also very rewarding when you see partnerships develop and trust built. I also have to admit the constantly deteriorating geopolitical situation does create huge challenges and requires adaptation. But the past has shown us that talking to each other, keeping communication channels open, exploring each other's view, contributes to peace and security. Let me close with this thought. Cyber diplomacy is the diplomacy of the future. It is how we will protect peace in an increasingly digital world. And while the tools may be new, the mission is timeless: to foster dialogue, build trust, and promote cooperation between nations. If you're drawn to diplomacy and driven by purpose, step into this space, because cyberspace needs peacekeepers too. Thank you for your attention.